Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, alumni. Welcome to this live discussion on COVID-19 with the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Cape Town, Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng. This event is being put on by the Development and Alumni Department. We were told that close to 600 of our alumni around the world signed up to be part of this live discussion. It's a first for us. We want to thank our ICTS, our Information Communications and Technology Department, for providing the platform and making this possible for us, and our Communications and Marketing Department as well, to get the message out to you. Under these extraordinary circumstances, we thought it was important for us to try to find a way to reach out to our alumni so that we could update you on how COVID-19 was impacting on the university and how we were dealing with COVID, and what plans the university had during this very challenging time. So with those brief opening welcome remarks, we'll just ask you to bear with us because this is our first. So if we have any technology glitches, we'll try to sort them out, because we hope that this will be the first of many other engagements. So it's now my pleasure to invite our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Mamokgethi Phakeng, to start this live discussion. She will also tell you that she is joined by members of a senior executive team who would also be available if there are any questions that may come up. Just to let you know that we have received a number of questions beforehand, and the Vice-Chancellor is aware of these questions, and I'm sure that in her address she will try to respond to many of those questions. But if not, there will be an opportunity for you to post questions. There's a question and answer feature, and we will try our best to try and answer as many of your questions as possible. The Vice-Chancellor will speak for about half an hour, and then we will have another half an hour for questions and answers. So welcome again, and over to you, Vice-Chancellor.
Thank you very much, Russell, and good afternoon. Hello, everybody. I can see at least about 300 people joining us from all over the world, mainly in South Africa. Hello, Sanbonani, Dumelan, Molweni. It's really wonderful to connect with you at this trying time. But I want to begin with some good news. Of course, I'm joined online by the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Transformation and Student Affairs, Professor Loretta Perez. Professor Sue Harrison, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Research and Internationalization, also joins us. Associate Professor Liz Lange, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Teaching and Learning, is also on the line. We also have the COO, Dr. Reno Mora. The Registrar, Mr. Royston Pile, is with us, as well as Professor Balmis Rahi, who's an expert in infection.
Okay, we see you back now. There was just some technical glitch, but that's been sorted out. So maybe we could start over.
Yes, so I was still introducing colleagues from the executive management, and they are with us. Later on, we will go to them for answering some questions. I'm sure many of you would like to know about the academic program, how we plan to complete the academic year 2020, and what our plans roughly for 2021. But I wanted to begin with some good news. The first students to test positive for COVID-19 at UCT has now fully recovered, and this is good news. The student left self-isolation over a week ago, and so far we had 7 cases of COVID-19, 4 of them being staff members and 3 of them being students. So 1 of them is now fully recovered, so which means we only have 2. And as we get the news, we'll keep updating you. Of course, we are not complacent. We are seeing the rise of infections and deaths related to the pandemic across South Africa. And we know that students who have gone home for lockdown are located across the country and the continent. But we hope that the lockdown and practice of physical distancing will help to keep the number of infections down. Let me begin here. I mean, I recalled when I joined UCT in July 2016. And for the first 6 months when I joined UCT in 2016, I shadowed Professor Danny Fesser as DVC Research and Internationalization. Towards the end of 2016, I was asked to give a keynote address at the launch of UCT's annual research report, which I described as a celebration of success. Delighted as I was about the success that year of research at UCT, I cautioned colleagues in attendance that evening that I'm very aware that what had brought us to that success may not be sufficient to get us to our next success, because we live in a world of national and international uncertainty and unrest. And that's how I described our world back in 2016. Already in 2016, I emphasized that the world is wobbling on its axis, spinning with unfathomable challenges. The old certainties, good and bad, are unraveling. And what we thought we knew, we no longer know. And I said we can only be confident that in the coming decades, we will encounter a world of rapid and almost unimaginably profound change. And a question that I asked colleagues to consider on that occasion is how we as UCT could possibly be prepared for the multiple and unforeseeable challenges that await us. This question is still relevant today. On that day, I argued that to cope with this uncertain future that we face, we are going to need three things. I argued that we're going to need an unrelenting commitment to excellence. I argued that we're going to need an exceptional focus on transformation and the courage to do things differently. Fast forward to 2018, when I contested for the job of Vice-Chancellor, and I argued that we must forever bury the notion that the global is somehow not African, because the global is local. I argued that our local problems are also global, and the global problems are local. Problems of Africa are problems of the world. Gone are the days when people thought infectious diseases are problems of Africa. Here we are today. Higher education around the world is facing the same set of uncertainties that we as UCT face about when institutions can resume face-to-face learning. The truth is that we don't know. US universities are being advised to plan for the possibility of online teaching and learning until September 2021. And at UCT, we are aware that a return to normality could take a bit of time. Along with other South African institutions, we are thinking about many of the same things as universities in Western countries. Do our academics and students have the tools they need for online learning? Do they have laptops, data, Wi-Fi? But in the South African context, given our social consciousness, we have to consider the deeper issues of poverty and how that may affect studying at home. To complete the academic year at UCT, we are also thinking about solutions for all our students, including those whose environment is not suitable for learning, as well as students living with different kinds of disabilities. Online learning is just one of those solutions. It can work for students with the right environment and tools. So we have conducted a survey to get a sense of the needs of our students. As a result of that, we are providing laptops on loan to financially needy students. These are laptops that we do not necessarily have. We've had to buy them. We have negotiated with service providers for free online access to UCT websites. And so far, we have CellC and Telkom on board who have agreed to this request. And we have been working with academics to develop online teaching materials in a very short time. But we know that online learning is not an option for every student. And even those who do have tools, those who have the laptops and access to unlimited and capped Wi-Fi, online learning may be only a partial solution. Because if you can think about it, all of our students decided to come to UCT because they knew it's a face-to-face university. So we have developed a plan to assist vulnerable students with blended learning, combining online lectures and face-to-face tutorials once the campus can reopen. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought into sharp focus the inequalities that we already knew existed across the world. Those inequalities are not only in South Africa, but they are across the world. Many, even most of our South Africa's university students come from families and communities of deep poverty, including remote areas where they do not have access to electricity and running water, much less the internet. UCT has been surveying students about their conditions at home and how that may affect their potential to study remotely. Our questions have been targeted to identify the struggles of students living in deep poverty. Students who have to work from home in a community of poverty are contending with a different kind of obstacle altogether. For example, how do they create the dedicated study space they need in a one-room hut or a shack that is shared by a big family? For these students, just coming to university sometimes can be an escape from the social factors of poverty, whether that's overcrowding, which sometimes creates competition for basic things such as food and space to sleep, and can contribute to an environment that is not suitable for learning. Many of the students who are talked to about where they come from see university as their escape to a peaceful space in which they can focus on their studies, a space that they don't necessarily have at home. And we at UCT are committed to continuing teaching and learning through lockdown for those students who have the capacity, and to maintaining a high quality of the courses, even as our methods of engagement adapt to the new environment. Online learning is not new to UCT. It's been in practice for years. The Center for Innovation and Learning and Teaching was established in 2014 at UCT. And in 2017, we completed the Classroom Renewal Project, which revamped and improved over 100 classrooms across UCT campuses, including the installation of audiovisual and IT capability, lecture recording, and advanced customer support. By the end of 2019, about 60% of lecturers had chosen to record their lectures. Of course, that number is now increasing because of the immediate need for online learning. So as you can imagine, throughout the years, since 2018, we have a bank of lectures that have been recorded because many lecturers had already chosen to record their lectures. And we found that recording lectures and creating ways for students to interact with lecturers and tutors online allows students to more easily revisit course materials, ask questions, and get personal support in and out of normal teaching hours. Even when there is no lockdown, we record these lectures, students can access them on Vola, and they serve as a support for their learning. It gives them more flexibility to manage their time. The technology is especially helpful to students who may be second English language speakers or require accommodations for a disability. In 2018, we launched an automated video recording venue called the One Button Studio to support academics going online. The studio has been used by about 170 lecturers so far. And in March, we launched a series of webinars to help academics to transfer as much as possible of their course materials into fully online platforms. So the lockdown didn't find us unprepared. We were somewhat already into the game of online learning, and we already had the facility, the One Button Studio for lecturers to record their lectures. As a result of these efforts, academics who are reluctant to use these technologies are finding that they can indeed teach successfully in this way. And we are monitoring the lessons learned and seeing how these technologies benefit both lecturers and students, not just during the lockdown, but also when we can return to face-to-face learning. So our online teaching approach is not only for lockdown. It was there before lockdown. It will be there after lockdown because we also use it to support our students. We continue to keep the institution active during lockdown. Only a skeleton of staff remains on campus during lockdown, such as our security staff. Of course, also staff that are doing research on COVID-19. However, the functions of the university, including all the vital support departments, are fully operational as staff are working from home. In fact, colleagues, in my view, are working much harder than before. They're working in more complex circumstances as they deal with the demands of home, family, and work. Many are at their computers for longer hours. They work much longer, they schedule too many meetings. I can see many of them meeting after meeting online. Students are facing their own complexities. The practice of social distancing is demanding in and of itself. It takes special focused effort not to feel isolated. So we, as a university, have taken special steps to ensure everyone has access to support for their mental health and well-being, because that's important for us. UCT has a dedicated web page to inform staff and students about mental health hotlines, the support provided by medical aid providers, and tips for working from home. We are using remote ways of communicating to maintain a sense of community across the institution. UCT researchers and postgraduate students remain as active as possible, working remotely. However, in line with the national lockdown, we've put on hold almost all research in the laboratory, in the studio, or in the field. So students who were doing field work had to stop. Of course, UCT research expertise and social responsiveness remain strong in initiatives to support the government's response to COVID-19. Many of our colleagues are engaged with the National Department of Health, with the NICD, as well as the presidency to support the government in our response to COVID-19. And these efforts include developing vaccine candidates, epidemiology studies, drug trials, clinical research, reagents for testing, and developing low-cost personal protective equipment. I've got colleagues online later on, Professor Sudesh Sivarasu, Professor Val Misrahi, will update you on some of the work, research work that we're doing here as the experts in the field. Other projects focus on the social aspects of the pandemic, including tracking and countering false information and using blockchain to protect individual privacy while tracking movements to help identify the spread of the virus. This work, as you can hear, is not just done in the Faculty of Health Sciences or in the Faculty of Sciences. Some of it is done in the business school, some of it in the Faculty of Commerce. Experts across the university are advising the government at provincial and national level. UCT academics are also engaging with the public online, speaking and writing on many different issues, including mental health, flattening the curve, online and blended learning, sports during isolation, reaching out to townships, among many others that colleagues are writing about. Many colleagues are serving on the front line of this health battle in local hospitals and clinics. I'm also proud of the members members across the UCT community who are volunteering to help serve people with many different needs. For example, we have about more than 100 UCT medical students that are manning the COVID-19 hotline at the Tigerberg Hospital, at the Tigerberg Hospital Disaster Management Center. We have 2 young UCT alumni who developed Corona app as a centralized information repository to help people and prevent panic in South Africa. And we have a UCT student who organizes food deliveries to the elderly in the community during lockdown. Really, really work that makes us proud as UCT leadership. The message that the pandemic has brought home to my colleagues and I is that the university cannot and does not exist in and of itself. We do not exist separate from the community. We cannot uphold the old image of an ivory tower university that is remote from our community. Our long-held focus on social responsiveness has helped us make significant steps towards community building, but I believe that moving forward, we will have to think of ourselves as being in the community more than we've ever done before. Any crisis that the community experiences will come to us. It's just a matter of time. We are seeing in a new way how communities can shape what we do as academics, as lecturers, as students, and as researchers. And as UCT continues to diversify and transform, as we seek new ways to bring excellence into our work and into the world we serve, it becomes more and more important to recognize our relationship to the community. There are several questions that Russell has sent to me in terms of what people want us to answer to, and I'm sure the DVCs will respond to. Some of the questions have to do with when do we think the university will open again, and what will the university look like when we reopen. Truth of the matter is that we don't know when the university will open again. As to when we will open, it depends, first of all, on when the lockdown will be lifted. But you can imagine, even when the lockdown gets lifted, it doesn't mean that the effect of the virus will not be there. So as a university, we're going to have to think about how do we open the university and how do we make sure that everyone is safe coming back onto campus. So do we open all our residences? Do we open some of them? Who do we bring onto campus? When and how? And ensuring that people are safe. That will be key for us in terms of bringing people on campus. We will not rush to bring people on campus unless we know that it is safe. So we're going to ask the UCT community to bear with us. We cannot give you a plan in terms of when we are opening and how until we know whether exactly the lockdown ends the end of the month, or is it partial lifting, or is it full lifting on the lockdown. There are questions about finances and how we're managing our finances and whether we'll be refunding students. Let me say also that question is also premature. I mean, if you're a fee-paying parent, you will notice that normally around March, April, we already send reminders for parents, fee-paying parents to pay fees. We haven't done that this year because we recognize the uncertainty going forward. We've put a pause on that, but neither can we refund anyone their fees because what we are working on right now is the possibility of bringing students back onto campus, the extension of the academic year so that we can help vulnerable students cover up with the year. So it is possible that the year might go beyond, academic year 2020 might go beyond 2020 into 2021. And therefore, the students who paid RES, who will have to come back to RES, that payment will still be used because if we extend, you're still spending time on campus. We have, of course, considered the fact that students on financial aid have gone home, and so they need support. When they were at rest in catered residences, they were getting limited support because they are being catered for. And so we've introduced a miscellaneous allowance to allow them to be able to survive because they are not in residence, but they are at home and they are on financial aid. So we've made those kind of allowances so that students don't struggle and they have support as they get online. There are costs to the university, even if we're going to bring the students back, but it's important to make them. There's a lot of costs that come with COVID-19 that we never anticipated. The buying of computers and so on. And that's why we reached out to the alumni, and we are grateful for the support that we have received so far. I myself pledged 20% of my salary into the COVID Emergency Fund. Many of you will know that I already donate 10% of my salary every month to a scholarship fund to support women postgraduate students. I'm now pledging 20% of my salary into the UCT COVID Emergency Fund to support the work that we need to do, the expenses that come as a result of COVID-19. We can see the costs already in terms of buying laptops and sending them to students, and we'll be inviting the rest of the staff at UCT to pledge if they want to. My pledge is for 3 months for 20% of my salary to go into COVID emergency funding. So we are grateful to you, alumni, for the support that you give us. We look forward to working with you further. I know that you indicated your willingness to support, and later on we can talk about other ways of supporting the work that we do in COVID-19. I want to, Russell, to pass on to Sue if there's anything that she wants to add in terms of the research. Otherwise, I'll give over to you afterwards, Russell, for questions.